It may seem weird to see Junkrat as high as he is on this list. I legitimately think he's getting slept on.
Junk needs some fucking help. They gotta figure out something about Junkrat.
You serious?
Boom. Bam.
Boom. I got trapped yesterday. Didn't even notice that I was trapped. So bad. This is. Please don't walk in my trap. No, sir, please.
Have you even played Junkrat to say that Junkrat was the worst right now?
Dude, I can't. I'm literally destroying their whole team.
He's a really good character, and I'm surprised people are so low on him.
Even with the evidence you guys were just given.
He thrives on the chaos of Overwatch 2. Don't sleep on him.
I'm still gonna keep Junkrat and Junkrat tier.
Today's video is sponsored by the Overwatch League. Opening weekend kicks off tomorrow, May 5th, noon Pacific time, and you're not gonna wanna miss out on the action. You guys know I love the competitive design of Overwatch 2. I can't wait to see the best players in the world show us what can be done in this new 5v5 format. Don't miss out. Click the link in the description to head on over to the Overwatch League YouTube channel so that you can catch the action live. And make sure you have your viewership rewards enabled. Link your BattleNet to your YouTube account so you earn Overwatch League tokens to cash in for skins, and they're some of the best in the entire game, in my opinion. If you're not in the Overwatch 2 beta yet, they'll be granting 1,500 viewers beta access every hour. And for fun, try out the Overwatch League Pick'ems. Test your esports prediction power and compete on the leaderboard for OWL Analyst Supremacy. Don't miss out. Click the link in the description, subscribe, and click the bell for the Overwatch League YouTube channel. I'll see you all there tomorrow. You may be asking yourself, what kind of maniac gets into the Overwatch 2 alpha and beta and plays Junkrat? Well, a distinguished gentleman of culture, of course. A guy who really wants to stress test what's possible in Overwatch 2, a guy who talks with his hands too much. Yeah, that guy. Here's the thing about Junkrat. I, like many people, assumed he would be useless. Overwatch 2, in theory, would be a game about flanker characters and hit scans. How the heck could you play a projectile hero and get anything done? Well, that's what I'm going to attempt to show you and prove flats wrong that Junkrat is indeed incredibly underrated. Because as it turns out, there's a lot of aspects of Overwatch 2 that makes him very strong, at least in a pub stomper way. The strategies to counter him are much easier to pull off in a team setting, but who's playing in that? I think Junkrat in Overwatch 2 is incredibly fun and fits into the game very well. The first reason is 5v5 and the tank reworks. You may have always assumed Junkrat was good at dealing with tanks, but I don't actually think that's as true in Overwatch 1 as people thought. Because the truth is, having two separate tank health pools and abilities put a lot of defense in the way of his damage. At lower ranks, Junkrat was always good at spamming into chokes and hitting squishy characters who struggle to hold the hands of their tanks. So what higher players take for granted a little bit is that a big mark against Junkrat's power was tank synergy in Overwatch 1, like Ryan Zarya, for example, or even Double Shield, having two tank health pools and two tank abilities to absorb the damage as you take space. Overwatch 2, DPS's relationship to tanks is a little bit different. Whereas in Overwatch 1, there was many characters that could vaguely look at a tank and easily work them down. In Overwatch 2, with just one tank, they've been giga buffed and often have extra abilities, which sort of act like extra lives. Like they'll go in, take a bunch of damage, then use their block ability, which absorbs more damage, and then in a lot of ways, they usually get extra health, and then they have two healers on top of that, and with that cycle, a single tank lives forever. And the windows of time you have to meaningfully burst down a tank are actually pretty small. So because of that, you have to be bringing some serious firepower if you think you stand a chance of taking down one of these tanks. And Junkrat, with his big meaty projectiles that rack up damage very quickly, has enough to even take down the likes of the almighty Orisa. Junkrat's concussion mines add another DPS element to this very small window of time that you have to DPS dump to kill a tank. But also, surprisingly enough, the knockback on them is significant. Tanks have resistance against knockback in Overwatch 2, but for some reason, the Junkrat mines are powerful enough to actually move them pretty significantly, and if not with one, with two, you definitely can knock a tank forward so they take more damage than they expected to take. And the last reason that makes Junk good against tanks is the trap. I've seen a lot of community members talk about how the trap is nerfed because you can wiggle around a little bit and jump and move slightly while in the trap. it tethers you to the ground, but you have a little bit of a freedom of movement to dodge. This means nothing to me. I think in my entire time grinding Junkrat, I've only failed to follow up a shot on a trap target once. Tossing a projectile to hit a target in a trap is not difficult, even when they're still moving. So I'm not sure why that's a big issue. In fact, I think the Overwatch 2 trap isn't nerfed. I think it's buffed, because the nerf part of it hardly affects me ever. And the thing to remember is that they significantly increased the rate that he throws it down, the deployment time. So because of that, when dive tanks are trying to close the distance on you, especially Doomfist, you have the time to whip the trap out right in front of you and bait them into it. The thing about the trap nerf that a lot of players, I think, forgot about is that most CC in the game is gone. So between Junk's 2 mines and a trap, as a DPS character, having this much crowd control is unheard of in the category. And because defenses are so low, if anything gets caught in the trap, it's often very hard for there to be anything to save it. So I feel like I'm confirming kills in traps more than I was in Overwatch 1. That's why they felt they had to nerf it, because with one tank, anything getting caught in it is a free kill. I mean, it's very similar to Ana Sleep Dart being very strong right now. It's better than that, because you can keep hitting the target and they can't get away. Whereas Sleep, they can move if you wake them up too fast. So with the Junkrat trap being so useful, it means the positions Junk likes to play are even scarier than they were in Overwatch 1. The thing I want everyone to realize is that even to the old maps, because Blizzard added more cover to try to make you feel more safe because there's less tanks, that also makes more room for Junkrat to navigate. In the map pool we're playing so far, I'm finding tons of rooms and cover positions that are viable for Junkrat to create like a small hallway for him to fight out of. And if that's the case, you instantly delete squishies, making the only characters that really want to go in to flush you out to be a tank, and we've already said he's good against tanks too. So if he's in position, he's a problem. I don't find it hard to find these really obnoxious corners to hold. And remember, when there isn't as many stuns in the game, there's less ways to instantly win on this type of fight. Junk's 1-2 combo of a nade and a mine is one of the strongest things in the game for this type of engagement. Like, compare it to Cassidy's old flashbang or his new sticky grenade. Stun Fan the Hammer was so good that if it hit you, you couldn't respond. That spot's done. Well, things like that don't exist in the game anymore. So because of that, Junkrat can really rob some crucial ground from the map, and almost nothing really wants to go fight it, which is how you would want to play him in Overwatch 1 as well. It just would do less. I think we all know by this point that mobility is a massive factor in Overwatch 2, and aggression is rewarded. While I'll admit, whenever I played Junk, I always fed into the enemy's backline like a moron, it used to not be as good. All flanks in Overwatch 2 are incentivized, because whereas in Overwatch 1, with 2 tanks, you always could kind of just pivot around your protection and the flanked looked silly. The sequel instead favors aggression, which makes characters like Genji good, and obviously Genji is better at this playstyle, but when you consider Junkrat's other strengths, it's impressive that he also is kind of like Genji as well, where he can pop out of a hole to take a close range fight against your backline, and they just have to defend themselves. He's particularly good against slower supports, but even against Lucio, because Concussion Mine is so easy to hit and so fast, he can control Lucio's movement and burst him down, unlike a lot of DPS as well. Like, Genji's pretty strong, but for me anyway, hitting a Lucio reliably is pretty difficult. This is where I'd go to say Overwatch 2 incentivizes the natural flank timings that are present in a lot of other shooter games. Because of how asymmetrical the combat is, someone going aggressive and doing something wacky is much better in Overwatch 2 than it ever was in Overwatch 1. Whereas in Overwatch 1, the team formation was very self-sufficient. With one less tank, the power of a map flank position is naturally better, which is why Genji and Lucio are good, but in the same way, I think it makes Junkrat good. You have to scout where he is, and he can make that expensive for you to do so. The characters that are best at flushing him out can still be punished by him, and then if you don't flush him out, well, the flank timings can utterly catch you out. Partially, this could just be my experience on the character, but I also think Overwatch 2 allows for a lot of picks to function this way, where you get in position, you find your matchup, you're gonna get value on any character that can do those things. I would just take it one step further and think Junk is uniquely good in Overwatch 2 because of the amount of damage he can do in a very short amount of time. It's hard to replicate that unless you have pro level aim. That's the thing I think people forget about. It's like we're all shooting less tanks overall. So much so that often it's not even worth it to shoot the tank. So you need to be able to hit small targets with whatever character you're playing. While top tier aimers will hit Junk as he barrel stuffs them. I'm interested to see how high of a rank you can get to with this playstyle before people reliably punish you with just pure aim. And I think it's a lot harder than people realize. Piecing together parts of his playstyle, Junk has the mobility to get into these positions, the mobility to jump out, the damage to burst things down without a lot of instant easy answers to punish it, like stuns. I think when you add all that up, you can see how the J silly wackiness really takes form, and he has the flexibility to take a lot of different fights, because most importantly, he can keep it on his terms. I did also want to mention that I pulled out Junkrat in the creator pickup game I was involved with, where we 2-0'd Yeedle's team. The first map playing Bastion and Junkrat, just hard focusing Yeedle on tank. And then the second map, Yeedle went over to Soldier, who I just don't think has a good matchup against Junkrat whatsoever, because Junk just dive bombs him and one-hit kills him and never gives Soldier the fight that he wants at medium to long range. There's probably a team diff here as well. I also had Stylosa on Soldier, and that's one of his best characters, so we had a pretty easy time on DPS, I think. But just from watching how I'm able to take these engagements against Soldier, there's not many characters I think that want to take these fights against Junkrat. You need to bring some serious burst to not get deleted in close range. And even if Junkrat himself isn't the one securing the kills, oftentimes the concussion mine to knock an enemy into the sky is enough for your team to follow up too. There's just less defenses overall. So Junk's disruption plays carve up the map, delete things, interacting with basically everything. When some of these other characters get nerfed, I'm willing to bet that the community is going to want Junkrat nerfed, whether high-ranked players think he's good or not. The only thing that stops him from being good is if you're inconsistent with some of his abilities, but even when I struggle with him, I feel like it's a skill ceiling issue, not the character is not capable of making the plays I want to make. Like sometimes when I go in to dive bomb someone, I misjudge my aim and don't land the combo and just end up feeding because of it. I had a 10-minute battle against a Mei where me and her couldn't hit a projectile to save our life and nothing happened. This is probably the most embarrassing Junkrat gameplay I've ever had, which I think is what people foresee when you try to think he's a good character. Like what happens if you just whiff and the enemy dodges you and you don't deal any meaningful damage that whole time? Well, the thing is, in this exact game, despite that failure, I was able to turn the game around, and we're gonna end up winning this round, mainly because I think when you feel Junk's not being consistent for you, just remember to take a little bit more time aiming, as funny as that sounds. Don't just flail out your shots, actually try to predict where the enemy's going to go if they are dodging you. Spamming's good around corners and at range to look to soften something up, but when you're in these dive bomb scenarios, you just have to really line up the shot to make sure that you land the combo. Otherwise, yeah, Junkrat is a useless character. The other way to help that be consistent is to make sure not to waste your mines. And a lot of my gameplay, it might look like I'm just constantly jumping across the map, but I try to only do that if I know I'm jumping into a safe location, taking some key map control, or if I'm confident in the duel I'm about to take, I'll be able to hit the grenades and not need the concussion mine follow-up, which usually isn't the case. The mine is really what makes the entire character for Junkrat. When you start to add up all these strengths, I'm struggling to see why I should think Junk is just a straight up bad character. It turns out a lot of the buffs they gave him to compete in Overwatch 1, I think make him quite easy, maybe even too easy to play in Overwatch 2. I haven't decided yet. Sometimes it's hard to notice this, right? Jumping into the beta as a Lucio player, I'm like, oh my God, Overwatch 2 is the greatest game I've ever played. Or wait, is it just because the hero I'm good at is overtuned? That's how I feel about Junkrat right now. He's very similar to Lucio and Genji and strong for similar reasons, and just has surprisingly good interactions with the rebalance of the game and the plays I think the sequel is incentivizing you to make. I mean, I for one accept our new Junkrat overlords. I will not complain if it's just me who feels he's really strong and I terrorize my way through ranked solo queue. It may also be the balance state as well. Because characters like Orisa and Soldier are seeing a lot of playtime, Junk's actually surprisingly surprisingly good against them. So it might just be a counter meta pick that is seeing outmoded impact, and Junkrat's dive bombing playstyle just counteracts those characters that are otherwise strong against what most other people are playing. Maybe Flats won't be convinced. He plays at a much higher level than I do, and I do suspect Junk will be figured out by the better players and they won't fall victim to his shenanigans. But for the rest of us though, I think I'll keep rocking the J-Sil. But that's everything for today's video. Don't forget to check out the Overwatch League tomorrow. Take the link in the description to tune in live, get your viewership rewards, and enjoy the games. They're gonna be great. I don't think we'll see Junkrat there, but you always can get more of my J-Silly shenanigans on this channel, so don't forget to hit subscribe here and on the Overwatch League. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.